My name is Summer Williams, and I chose to do The Runaway Bunny by Margaret Wise Brown. And here is the cover that was illustrated by Clement Hurd. This is a beginning reader book that was probably intended for children between the ages of 3 to 5. I personally had a board book copy of this. However, I did see it was in hardback cover, which I think means that it was intended to be held and read by its audience, but it was also intended to be read to its audience. And so we can kind of see that from the language choice and how maybe the child would have needed a little bit of help reading this book. It's definitely meant to explore new language, not just sight words. But similar to Beatrix Potter, the board book does fit into the hands of its audience, so it's interesting to see how the history of children's literature has trickled down into some more modern publications. But I also think this is a great starting off place, since this is where a lot of people begin their reading. I think that books like this are very familiar to us, and they're quite relatable. Just so we have an understanding of what we're talking about here, this book is about a child bunny that contemplates running away from home, and the story takes us through all the elaborate ways that the little bunny might escape, followed by its mother's retorts for how she would pursue him. So, like we talked about, that language is very simple. It usually doesn't exceed 2 syllables, and there's also the use of repetitive sentence structure that kind of aids in the accessibility of this book for its audience, but it also introduces new words like crocus and trapeze that probably haven't been seen before by a child this age. So we can see how this book is educational in more ways than just its message and its moral, which we'll get into in just a second. Okay, so we have to talk about the literary elements. The message of the story is probably the most forward part of this, and so it's very gentle and non-judgmental of the bunny's wish to run away, which makes it kind of inviting for young audiences, as the mom doesn't chastise the child for wanting to run or trap them, but instead she gives them room to kind of find their own dream, and matches their ideas in that, kind of reinforcing them. It also teaches children the importance that they have to their mother, and that they can't run away to avoid her, without being didactic or critical. And it helps teach visual literacy with the ideas that the child and the mother are talking about, taking up one page with images, giving examples, and then having a whole nother page in full color that's very attention absorbing, to kind of help that child fully understand and pick apart the language and what that means. And then this book is really great about introducing the story arc, and so I have a couple of examples of how it does this. We have the introduction, where the little bunny talks about running away, and the mother says that she will go after him. This is on the very first page, so from the beginning we're made aware of what the idea this book is going after, and then it goes into the rising action. Now this would be all the examples that the little bunny and mother have for how they would run after each other, or run away from each other in the little bunny's case. But I think it's also worth noting here the reference to the mother being a force of nature, or her pursuit of her child being a force of nature here with the wind. And we also see it again where she's a tree, in order to go after her little bunny as a bird. And then here is the climax, where the little bunny decides that he would like to be a little bunny, and kind of comes back into himself, and the mother is there just to receive that. And then of course the resolution, which notice how the resolution and the introduction only take up one page. I think this is partly because it's for a younger audience and the main idea is not super elaborate, but I also think it's because this is the author wants us to focus on what's contained between these pages, with the kind of great effort that the mother makes in order to be close to her child. I personally find the images to be the most interesting part of this book. Some of the pages use bright and captivating watercolor, while the other uses black and white fine line pen or pencil work. And I think that contrast is really interesting, especially with how the author uses it. We see that when the baby bunny is talking about running away, the artwork is black and white, illuminating the sadness or the fear that the mother feels in that distance between her and the child. And then when the mother bunny discusses that she will keep up with her child, the artwork is in full color and it's softly outlined in the edges, which makes it feel warm and inviting if we can kind of feel the connection that she has to her child, and the closeness that brings her that little bit of peace, which again we can see in the bright and warm colors. Even this blue in this image here with the sky is kind of a warmer blue, showing that motherly love there. And we have to talk about the cover as well, which we saw in an earlier slide. The cover adds to the story as it includes the title in a very simple linear font, with the watercolor illustrations of the mother and baby bunny. However, the style on the front is unlike the watercolor pages inside the book, as they're not anthropomorphized on the cover, where they are in the rest of the work, where we see them being mountaineers or fishermen or gardeners, right? There's that little bit of human element to them. But I think this speaks for how natural this feeling is and this pursuit over one's child. And I think that's the main message that the author's trying to carry through the work, which is evidenced by what we see on the last page here, which again ties back into that idea that the children are no longer anthropomorphized, or the mother is no longer anthropomorphized as well, but instead we've returned to their natural environment, just like that love and connection and pursuit is natural.